Team Mary 3, this is Wiseacre, Bombarder. We have Liftoff. We're going to change to cameras. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. I don't hope. You are doing good. You are doing good. You're doing great. You're doing great. Some of you are fragile. And none of you are men. Men are not allowed to be fragile. Let me just get this out of the way. I posted something. I think everything's working. Good to see everybody. I posted something nefarious. Rasta-nefarianism is you're putting the raw and the nefarious together using the glue of sta. And sta is pretty good glue, you know. It's a good way to do things. So, actually, I posted it because it's the first time I've ever noticed this kind of thing, and I probably shouldn't even notice it. This is not even the topic of today's show. I actually have a show, by the way, so if you can hang through this, we'll get to it. But the concept is male fragility, and it has so much prana. That is a bad word, man. That is a bad fucking word. And we're living in a time where you can't be having that word. In fact, that word means weak. So fragile itself is actually a bad word, only when it's placed after the word male. Female fragility is fucking hot right now. That's one of the biggest things going. You could argue there's some pushback to that, but not really. A woman actually has to be fucking unfragile, but then appear fragile all the time. It's true. And so I'm not trying to take away from their pain, because Lord knows, you guys, you ladies, you know, you carry your burdens, you carry your vitriol in a cross on a shoulder, and you know, I'm ruining it right now. I'm giving you credit. I shouldn't do that. I know that doesn't help. And same with male fragility. I would argue that the reason why we are living in what many describe as a shithole, I'm not gonna lie, many describe it as that way, is because we don't allow fragility. If we had more room for male fragility, I think that we would be able to exercise just how unproductive it is, but only after us spending out how productive it is when you start to compensate in a society that insists you can't have male fragility. I told you last time, failure's not an option is a horrible motto. Failure's not an option means we're going to have to fucking lie. And there could be no male fragility means you're going to have to fucking lie even harder. And here's the thing. Isn't that fragile? Like, isn't it fragile as fuck to have this concept that no one's allowed fragility? If you've got a penis, you cannot be fragile. That's literally the rule. Did you know this? Who knew this? Probably someone knew this. And yeah, I just think that's really interesting. And I don't want to change society. I tell you all the time, the vitriol's perfect, man. Finest piece of vitriol ass. This Gaia. Slap that bitch on her ass cheek. You know what I'm saying? Be like, bitch, you got it going on with the fragile vitriolity, all that stuff. So, yeah, a lot of static coming through the line, in the sense of some heat and pushback. Someone told me that they were mad that I was trying to raise supporters on my channel. Had some interesting movements in Patreon. If you want to look at that, we've discussed this whole energetic prana, how this all works. I described it as a Red Pheasant opportunity, which I still see it that way. And one of the insults that this guy was throwing at me was little Jamesy needs to have a bake sale to raise money for his channel. And it was, you know, it's like a long paragraph of like, you know, here's why you suck. Here's why you are evil. Here's why the world is awful because you exist. And if you would stop life, you know, just typical boilerplate, go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I need a, I hate James True template. And ChatGPT is going to like, I got you covered, baby. Here you go. This is work. Do you want a slideshow for this? I can give it this to you in a PowerPoint if you want. And stuff like that. You know, standard stuff. But it was cute because it was little James True and everything was in lower caps, which, guys, man, for like 2 decades post-college, I was like no caps guy. I looked forward to people saying, how come you don't use capital letters? Because I wanted to say, because I'm not a capitalist. And I think I got to use that joke like never. I think I used it in my head at least 17 times. I fantasized about being able to use that joke. I never got to get to it. So if you're going to put my name in lowercase letters, man, I'm just like nostalgic, you know? I'm in the back seat. Some guy named Neil, probably Diamond, is singing something. And it's a good time. I'm just saying, it's a good time. I had a 1982 Honda Prelude. What do you mean do? It's a fucking good time back then, man. Things were good. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't fit in the trunk. You could fit other people that were smaller than you in the trunk, but couldn't put a body in there. I do not recommend killing somebody with a 1982 Honda Prelude. 1984 Honda Prelude, you're going to have plenty of trunk space in there. Let's be honest. Boxing came in, I think the moment shoulder pads came in, where women started wearing shoulder pads because male fragility, probably, the 1984 Prelude said, look, we need some fucking trunk. We got to put some dead bodies. We got to let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. But anyway, about bake sale. Somebody in the comments, a very wise person in the comments said, James, you should actually lean into the whole bake sale thing and alchemize this. And I was just like, yeah, this is good magic. I do this all the time. It's the Red Pheasant. If you don't know what the Red Pheasant is, here it is. I really want to get to Nathan Forrest, but I do want you to know this. I don't know what should I do, guys? What should I do? I'm gonna tell you anyway. You're lost. What are you gonna do? You're stuck with me. Hope you're enjoying the show. Well, there's a lower audience rate, obviously. Not a lot of people watching right now, and that could be a sign of the times. It could be time for the 4-leaf clover of James to return to the earth. That's fine, guys. It's been a fucking good run. Oh wait, now there's 38 viewers. Okay, it's fine now. Everything's fine now. We're fine. But for an airship, guys, 38. We're gonna be hitting some trees. People are gonna complain. Little kids throw bottles at the balloon when we're this low. And it is very degrading when you've got like bottle kids throwing bottles at you. Because what can you do? You can't throw a bottle back at a bottle kid. I've tried. First of all, those fuckers are fast. Second of all, people get really mad when they look at it on paper and you're throwing bottles at kids that are, like 11. It doesn't matter that they have a go-kart and bottle rockets and all the other shit. It's just... It's invincible. Those guys are fucking invincible. And lots of the world has these little bunkers, It's basically a giant game of paintball, except for everyone's just spitting on each other. And that there's these little bunkers, right? And it's led these bunkers to invent the idea that there's no such thing as male fragility or that male fragility is bad. And I'm telling you guys, that is the most fragile shit I've ever heard. Because it literally means that no man can be a Finnish carpenter. Do you know why? Because Finnish carpentry is fragile. It's fragile. You got a little scroll saw. You're working through your template. You got a pocket router. Yeah. No. Some of you ladies are like, oh my God. No. Seriously. It's a real tool. Look it up. It's a real tool. I'm a real tool, some people say. Look that up too. And one of those said, little James is having a bake sale. And so we're having a bake sale. Yeah, right now. If you go to the store, these are light baked. These are light baked cookies. This is a Olmec. I just put these back on the store just for this. This is special. Red Pheasant sale. Special for you. But yeah, this is an unfinished one. I've got unfinished, right? And you're wondering why there's a hole in his head? Because I'm giving you the power. See, what happens is I give you this little eye right here. Right? You get the eye. And then you get the dude. And you activate the Olmec, the oldest king in the world, by the way. The oldest known king that we know of that is his face. El Rey, right here. That's his name. And I'm not going to do it on air because this is one of yours. But I'm going to, you get to snap in the third eye. Do you see how symbolic that is? You get to snap it in. If you go to Patreon, there's a discount code. And you can join Patreon for free. So everybody wins. I haven't posted the discount code in a few weeks on Patreon. So, and it's live right now. And I didn't have time because I was prepping slides. But if you can't walk into the chat, someone knows it, I bet. And if not, I will definitely paste it later, I promise. But that'll give you 20% discount, so you could join Patreon for free, and you could participate in the El Rey Bake Sale. If you want to spend a little bit more money, yeah. If you want to spend a little bit more money, we got finished ones too. This is done in graphite. And they come in matching pairs. Check this out. These guys are actually magnetized again. See, these are pairs. There's a male-female magnet. Both work on the fridge, but you have a secret partner. Secret partner, okay? So if you buy two, you'll get a secret partner. Right now, you can only buy these in two. It's basically 2 for 1 for the unfinished, because finishing this in graphite is a lot of work. Oh, my God, and it's so messy. And you guys maybe remember I used to wear like white shirts on the show. Yeah, that's not going to fucking happen again. Those white shirts are gone. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, it was fun making them. So you can take advantage of that. You can embrace your male fragility. Hey, there's 52 people here. Great to see you guys. Guys, I'll do this show for one person. If I can keep my lights on, I will do this for one person. I don't want a lot of attention, because when I notice the people who have a lot of attention, you got to say a lot of retarded shit to keep the people's attention when you have that much attention. Like, seriously, you have to go like full retard. You have to embrace like the deepest ignorance on every level so you can really reach into the goods and find that lowest common denominator, because that's where all the fish are. There's a lot of fish there. You know that. I'm a highbrow salmon hunter, you know? I'm like a grizzly bear that's kind of lazy, but he does know that if he takes a nap right underneath this water spout and he falls asleep with his mouth open, which he's prone to do, it's probably a good chance the salmon's gonna accidentally fall in there. And this is living. That fish is gonna taste 20 times better because it is the virgin sacrifice. We talked about this concept. It's given itself to you. You, the grizzly bear. It gave itself to you. That meat is some supple meat. That is the veal of salmon. Am I right, people? Am I being too dank with these connotations, proitations? Is that what I'm doing? Is that what's going on here? Let's get to it. Let's get to it. I love it when people ask me questions, and I thought that the Nathan Bedford Forrest stream was like 3 weeks ago. Like, seriously, in my mind, I gave that 3 weeks ago. None of you guys need to hear that. You don't want to hear any of that stuff that happened, blah, 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 stuff like that. And my good buddy E wrote me and said, hey, man, do you happen to know what was this speech about Nathan Bedford Forrest, which we're going to talk about? And I looked it up, and that episode is so old, it has 2 numbers. That's how old it is. It's like episode 72 or 74 or something like that. It's back in the days where everything I'm talking is like over this, and I'm just fucking clueless as hell, you know, and I'm just like, oh, you know, and the content's good, but that's kind of tricky, you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, it's kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky to listen to that. I get it. I wish I could undo those things. Actually, I think you probably could now. I think there's probably an AI now that would probably eliminate all that stuff. But looking this up, man, I'm invigorated by this. It made me want to revisit it and share it with you. So now that we've gotten into the topic of fragile men, and we can move on, because honestly, I think most of you are. I'm not gonna lie. I think most of you are like, look, we just don't let. Let's not have male fragility, James. Let's just not have that, and that's fine. We'll work it out. It'll work out. This one's like a copper finish. See, there's a copper one. El Rey, very fitting. Let's get to this. Nathan Bedford Forrest, the first clan leader, the first leader of the KKK. Did you know that? The first Grand Wizard, as they call it, Confederate cavalry general. Much to the dismay of most of the Confederacy and Union Army, to be honest, became the first Grand Wizard of the KKK in 1867, right? So just right after the Civil War. The Klan originally emerged during Reconstruction as a secret society. Its claimed purpose was to resist federal occupation and protect the Southern way of life. Over time, anonymity allowed violence, terror, and racial suppression. Here's the takeaway. And you know what? I'm going to pick on him again. I had an opportunity to deliver this talk to Skeptico, a pretty popular show, and this stuff burned him so much that he refused to air the episode, and he was a coward about it. And I'm sorry, but it's just true. This stuff is fucking important. And the fact that it rubs you the wrong way is frankly proof that it's true. Because if I was just ignorant, you would have turned my entire stream into a ridicule fest where you just repeated words that I say. My words burned you like a bitch, Alex. They stung you like a wet, bitchy wasp, and you ran away from them. And thank God I had enough viewers at the time that went and gave you shit for that, which is why I'm like, look, I just want to leave you alone. We're not gonna fix this, because you wouldn't release that stream. And I needed you to release that stream because I was too much of an idiot to even think that someone would do that. I didn't record that. I had no concept that someone would do that someone would even think that about history, which is why I purposely, on purpose, will go to Wikipedia to find facts that I already know, simply so my viewers can have the fastest, easiest approach to back up whether or not I'm full of shit or not. I like Wikipedia. I think Wikipedia is giving you the true mythology of the day. It's telling you the real truth about what happened. And I see it as a more vital source because it's telling you what the people believe. And so even in all the Wikipedia stuff that's telling you this guy was the evilest fucker in the world, not Alex, Alex is a good man, but Nathan Bedford Forrest, it's absolutely necessary that this fucker be the evilest person in the world, the most racist fuck in the world, or else the entire Civil War has to be reconsidered from the beginning. It is that important. And if you doubt me, I want you to ask yourself, why would someone choose to suppress the data that I'm about to show you now? The data that no one will question, that even AI before this show has backed up and said, yep, you're onto something. However, this is very controversial. Literally, its exact words. Nathan Bedford Forrest. Born July 13th in 1821 in a little town called Chapel Hill, Tennessee. Enlisted as a private in July in 1861. This is right when the Civil War was breaking. Commissioned as a lieutenant colonel by October. He went from private to lieutenant colonel in August, September, October, in 3 months, 90 days. Raised his own cavalry at his own personal expense. Decided that if we're going to win this war, it's time for us to go native. Literally used those words of going native and implemented tactics that the Iroquois Confederacy employed, and you can look this up, Alex. Sorry, I'm going to stop talking about Alex. And that you will look through military history and see that one of the most difficult parts of the American Revolution was the change in tactics that were employed in this native land. Why? Because there was already a pretty vibrant culture here. And that culture had been through many wars, was still going through many wars. The French-Indian War really was just, let's let these guys kill each other, meaning not the French and but the Indians of the French and the Indians of the English were Pied Pipered into the same place and say, how many of you guys are going to die? Because ultimately, we just want this land. That's why we're calling it a new land. Because we don't want to be the ones that have to wash our hands of the blood of what we had to do to get here, which is why we're going to have you do it. You, the Indians, are going to kill each other because we have a more developed propensity to deceive and to lie because our frontal lobe has been through more vitriol than you. This is ultimately what I think is happening. I think you're looking at a a virgin race, not virgin in the ways of the wild, not virgin in the ways of the jungle, virgin in the ways of community, of civilization. That civilization is such a powerful egregore that it's able to blow cultures away that have never seen anything that big. And it manifests as smallpox. It manifests as disease. That the psychic load of what it takes to realize the Wetiko that you're up against, a force so strong that you have a word for it and all of us recognize it in the vernacular and we're the bad guys and we still recognize that word, is giving you an accurate picture of how tenable and how deadly all of this is. Like, whew. So 3 months later, Lieutenant General raised his own cavalry, was known to always lead the charge, was known to always lead personally. These are two different things. Forrest had a very specific tactic, very specific, and it was fear. He spoke about this all the time, and he explained the only way we will win is by capturing the flag of fear. It's the only way. This is one of his exact words. And so over and over again, from battlefield to battlefield, this guy would come in, sometimes outnumbered by 20. And the only reason why he had success is A, he's a crazy motherfucker, and B, he never, ever hesitated to engage. It's a lot like if you know a friend who plays poker and you know that the very first hand, someone's going to bluff and go all in, and it's also kind of rude. I used to be that person until I realized, oh, wait, we're not actually playing this to win. It's kind of like that, where you think about the tactics of the game. This is Forrest. He's autistic in this way. Well, I just want you guys to go the fuck away. I want you to stop coming in here explaining that you're somehow a federal temple agent. What the fuck are you talking about? And that you're the White House? This isn't the White House that I remember. I remember the Iroquois Haudenosaunee house under the white tree. That longhouse, that big house under the white tree is the White House. This is what the White House used to mean. Literally, the Iroquois capital itself was the White House, and it was long, and it had 2 chambers, and it was bicameral. And this is not a new land, right? You get it. This is not a new land. And Nathan wants people who do this to leave him the fuck alone. That's his goal. I want you guys to leave me the fuck alone. He's not interested in a confederacy. He's not interested in a union. He's interested in Turtle Island. He's interested in what's already here, the culture that's already here. 1/3 of the Cherokee in the South were white guys. The Scottish Highland had integrated completely with Qualla, with the land of Cherokee. The land of Cherokee was simply a subsidiary of the Iroquois Confederacy, but we were not allowed to see that because people like those who will not be named will suppress these things because it shoots ourselves in the foot and we have to face our own actions, which is why you see me sometimes say there's 500,000 landmines still in Cambodia underneath the ground. And if we didn't bury them ourselves, they came from our own factories. Stop saying we're the good guy and just start looking at history itself. Just look at nature and the jungle of what happens. War means fighting, and fighting means killing. This is the most eloquent thing that you will hear Nathan Bedford Forrest say, that you will hear him say. War means fighting, and fighting means killing. Total redneck. Claimed to have personally killed 30 plus men just with a pistol or with a saber. Only killed one more man than actually his own horses. Lost 29 horses shot from underneath him. Please do keep in mind, though, that Forrest usually was the very first person that was leading the battle. The very, very first one. And typically, he lost a horse pretty much every time. This is not a normal tame guy. It's not a guy that's like fully frontal lobe, right? July 1862, Battle of Murfreesboro. Sorry, I'm talking in my southern drawl now. Can't help it. When I get into history, I get all Confederate. You're going to have to deal with it. Hope you guys are doing well. Happy Monday. July 1862, Battle Murfreesboro. Forrest led 1,400 men against a Union garrison of 12,000. Captured in town. Whoops, wait. I can't read that. Sorry. Go back here. Captured the town. 1,200 prisoners, supplies, and 12 cannons. That's right, 12 cannons. December 1862. Led a raid into West Tennessee. This is what would eventually become Memphis, right? With 2,100 cavalry, cut Grant's supply lines. Union suffered over 1,500 casualties. April 12th, 1864. This is probably one of the more famous battles, the Fort Pillow Massacre. Forrest's troops stormed the fort. He was like, there's a fort, let's frickin' take it. 300 plus Union soldiers killed. Big controversial event. Many African-American, it says, because this is when Union was employing slaves to fight in the war, i.e., do you want shoes? Here's a gun. This is how the North recruited everyone. 1864, November 1864, the Battle of, what is that one? Johnsonville, of course. Forrest's cavalry destroyed Union supplies worth $6.7 million. That's $120 million today, like the biggest domestic terrorism act you could imagine. February 1865, appointed commander of all cavalry in the West by General Robert E. Lee. Generals fucking hated this guy. But the problem is he just kept delivering. And if you keep delivering, you're going to get promoted no matter what when it's time for war, because war is about killing, and this is what we do. And typically what would happen is that he would arrive on a battlefield where technically there's another general that's already in charge, and he would show up with his men, and he would see that this would be a disadvantage. He would say this, and that he would lose his men. They would die if they did not attack right now. And so he would just attack. And this is insubordinate, uncalled for, completely unnecessary, completely breaks chain of command, and that's the rebel way. This is Dukes of Hazzard, guys. You're in Hazzard County. Even though Hazzard was actually formed in California, I'm taking it. Sorry. You guys can screw yourselves if you try and take the Dukes away from me. So this is the spirit of the South. This is the Leonard Skinner of all Skinners, basically. And he built himself such a reputation that he was named as the very first Grand Wizard of the KKK. Now, I don't mind you having a shitty take on the KKK. I got no beef with it. Some of you really need to hate the KKK because it makes you feel better. It makes all of us feel better because it's a pharmacos. There's that word again, but it's a pharmacos that requires or allows you to baptize yourself from how unracist you are by calling someone racist. This is a psychological technique. And the KKK is very instrumental, very much like Hitler, for pulling shame from you. It's what I would call an astringent. It's a salve that's placed on the skin that will activate and pull toxins from outside of you. The toxins meaning your own shame, your own hate. I published an article yesterday about this. The rise of self is the rise of shame. You can find it on Substack. I think it's a really good read that's worth your time in reference to this. But specifically to keep this about Forrest. This guy was so effective at what he did that he was the people's general. And he was so effective at what he did that he rose to be the cultural icon of the South itself. This guy would have to have been the embodiment of everything the South was. And I can't think of even a liberal scholar that's trying to tear down my entire story who would even disagree with this. This really would be the pure, raw representative of what the South was, especially at the time. By war's end, very, very much undisputed, that he's credited with over 65,000 Union casualties. And the most men that he ever commanded was 20,000. Most of the time it was 2,000, 200, 100, 1,000. It's very small numbers, which he preferred, which is why he was able to do crazy ass shit. Like, we're just going to attack the fort. That guy's going to come out and smoke a cigarette. We're going to storm the gates and we're just going to go in. And we're not going to wait for permission. We're not going to ask. We're not going to line up our flags. We're not going to set up an opportunity for parlay. This is war, and war's about killing. Patum, ting, you know, this is who you're dealing with. You're dealing with this guy. So Nathan Bedford Forrest is, should have put this in a different. Nathan Bedford Forrest is given the Grand Master of the KKK. But I need you to picture what the KKK actually was versus what we call it now. And this is probably what lost people who will not be named. Is because when you try and shed light or compassionate what the KKK was, you start to get in trouble. The KKK, from all that I would say, if you want to get the most accurate picture of what the KKK was, I want you to picture Kiwanis. Yeah, I want you to picture a Kiwanis club. It's a religiously secular, I know that's a really strange term, but this is kind of what Freemasons are. It's a religiously secular band of people that are formulated not around a belief in a God, not around a cosmology or a creation story, but in a sense of community. It's very easy to say into a sense of race. It's very easy because it's so easy to paint that that's what this was about. But it really wasn't at the beginning. The KKK was actually the only form of government, quote, quote, that the South had. And the best model that you can see for this, I think, would be a mafia, gangs of New York kind of organization, a known, socially accepted, socially sanctioned kind of government, a buddy world, a you're my buddy, I'm your buddy, a buddy network, which we still have today in every walk, in every class, in every race, a simple way for people to connect to each other. It is my view that the reason why the KKK was not only infiltrated through federal agents, which has been outlined in a stream called Federal Clanbake, which was also I published around the time, which we might have to visit if there's enough views on this view. I'll gladly go into the Federal Clanbake again, but that the proof of the federal government purposely invading the KKK, first of all, it's super easy because everyone gets to wear a hood, which was not necessarily even a part of that organization. That was a ritual entry. It was not a let's go do bad shit. But see, when you talk about people having secrets, all of a sudden everyone gets real queasy. And then all of a sudden people want a government. And they want a government because they want the government to keep the secrets instead of anyone else. And this is really how America was formed. It was formed over a fear of secrecy, a fear of locality, a fear that this world, America, would become a confederacy because it was already one. The Iroquois Confederacy is the official term for it. And the battle that we have against the Confederacy is a battle itself against Turtle Island around the government that was already here. This government functioned the same way the KKK did. The Iroquois Confederacy had the exact same structure, the exact same social interactions that have occurred. Doesn't need laws, does it? It needs cohesion. So the group ends up doing what the group feels is necessary, and that this is something that we practice now. And the biggest proof that I have for this, besides the fact that 1/3 of the Cherokee was white, and if all the white people, for whatever magical reason below the Mason-Dixon line, hated anyone of a different race, it sure is hypocritical as fuck that 1/3 of the Cherokee population was actually white. And what's even odder is when you look at the Trail of Tears, the entire emancipation, they call it, of the Cherokee people, that was actually done by a Union-powered government, not the South. And that when you look at what was happening to the local culture of the South, slaves tended to integrate into the Seminole tribe. As much as 10% of them were just black slaves. 1/3 of the white people tended to integrate in with the Cherokee. The Scottish Highlands had their own clans. There are even legends of so many chief white bears that I've lost count. And you in your mind might have an idea that there's just a lot of white bears back then. And whenever an Indian's born, a true Native American Indian with red blood that we see on TV that cries when trash falls, that's what we picture when we say Chief White Bear. But they just call him Chief White Bear because, there's a lot of white bears, a lot of polar bears in America. You see, global warming's real. And back then, we had a lot of polar bears. They were bipolar bears, so they actually went to therapy. A lot of vision quest therapy back then. So bipolar bears would come to America to become polar bears again. So, they'd sit on the couch, do some therapy, then they get better, then they leave. So we invented the shamans that healed them were Indians, but we just called them Chief White Bear. Or these were just white guys. Odd white guys, not your regular run of the ilk, the same way back then where they would say, oh, there's Chief Mohawk Head. It's like, what'd you call him? Well, yeah, that's literally his name. His name's Chief Mohawk Head. And that we have the same concept as Chief White Bear. It's full of history, chock full of these white guys just dangling like a booger from the nose of people that are insisting this was about race. And it wasn't. This is about, how do you seize federal power? One of the biggest arguments I make is that, isn't it interesting that within like 5 days of legally emancipating every black person, we invented the income tax, which means that every black person that was just emancipated was basically enslaved the moment that they become free? That the moment that they become free, they become tenable and required to pay into the Revenue Act, which would eventually become the federal income tax. And we're worshiping Lincoln. And he's the guy that put 300 reporters in jail that were saying, hey, maybe this is kind of fucked up. What's going on? Maybe the South has a point. And one of the biggest things that happened, I think, that really, really turned the tides was July 5th. It was 1875 in a park in Memphis, what's now a park. And Nathan Bedford Forrest came. And he delivered a speech to the Independent Order of Polebearers. The Independent Order of Polebearers would later become the NAACP. I don't have a direct sheet of paper that proves that, but most historians would agree that this is the predecessor to the NAACP. And the guy that believes in charging first, the guy that believes that war's about killing, the guy that has zero propensity to give thought, to wait, to delay, or to, more importantly, play politics, comes to the NAACP, the grand wizard, the largest figure in the KKK, comes to the NAACP and asks, can I be the first white person to deliver a speech to your organization? Would you give me that honor? These are his words. This is probably where Alex, I'm sorry about his name, but this is probably where Alex lost his shit. And he lost his shit because if he goes to Wikipedia, he finds out I'm right. He's like, fuck. The only thing he can argue is that there's no proof that the black polebearers would become the NAACP officially because they merged with the fellow polebearers of the Black Caucus, and then the fellow polebearers joined the later NAACP It's stuff like that. It's stuff like that. And not only did he come and ask for the privilege of being the first white person to speak to them, but he said we were born on the same soil, we breathe the same air, and we live in the same land. Why then can we not live as brothers? Later on, he says, it has always been my motto to elevate every man, to depress none. And this speech was full of elevation. He was explaining to all of them on an individual basis their duty to create roots in this soil. Their duty as individuals to place their dreams into the soil and build a new fertile ground for their families to grow. This is the Grand Wizard of the KKK telling people this. When I can serve you, I will do so, he says. We may differ in color, he says, but not in sentiment. Finally, he goes on to urge them to vote. He urges them to vote freely and to live industriously. This is the Grand Wizard of the KKK. The first Grand Wizard. The start of it all. The epitaphic Odysseus of the South. The symbolic Perseus of Turtle Island himself. The one that represents the most hearty views of what Southern heritage means. And he's delivering a speech to the NAACP, and they're liking it. Oh, they're liking it. As I said, 1/3 of the Cherokee Nation had European ancestry by the 1800s. Cherokee leaders, like, that was just by the 1800s, guys, before this even happened. Cherokee leaders like John Ross were of mixed Scottish and Cherokee descent. Does just John Ross sound like a name for a racist South that wants racial purity and that fought an entire civil war because they were afraid of different colored skin? Wouldn't they have been the very first people to enact the Trail of Tears? Wouldn't that have been a Southern invention? But yet it wasn't. As you know, we've discussed before what the gauntlet is in Native American culture, and that Iroquois Confederacy adopted captives of African descent, European descent, and that these people were assimilated. They were assimilated. They weren't killed. They weren't held as prisoners. They were assimilated because this is Turtle Island. This is what you do. You do things like this. And the Highland Scots in Appalachia would often intermarry with the Cherokee and the Creek Indians and expanded the range, technically, of the Iroquois Confederacy by doing this. And these were hidden pockets of the South that the Northerners actually had to utilize the Southern Confederacy's connections to even find out that there were other white people here that didn't know we had a federal government, that weren't paying into the Revenue Act. The very town I live in is Banner Elk, and it tried to be a brigadoon. It tried to disappear during the Civil War. Their motto, if they had one, was, "You guys are fucking crazy. Leave me the fuck alone." And Nathan Bedford Forrest said, "You guys are fucking I will be fucking crazy until you guys leave me alone." This was the sentiment. Keep in mind, less than 2% of the people, even if it's 1%, is still debated, actually owned slave contracts here. Meanwhile, over 30% of people in New York and in Boston employed some form of indentured servitude, which is just slavery with a sheet of paper. The difference, you might ask? I don't know if there is one. I think that we've decided there's a difference because we needed to say that we found our country because there was a bunch of racists in the South, and that's why we had to do what we had to do. And that the 300 newspaper reporters, which was more than half back then, guys, 300 newspaper reporters back then is basically the entire media, is held under house arrest by Abraham Lincoln. He invents the Revenue Act. He taxes everyone right after emanciping everyone. And then he tells the people, don't worry, it's just because you're racist. But hey, it's not racist if you're above the Mason-Dixon line. Am I right? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And so today we have an imaginary chalk line in our psychology that tells us that if you were above the Mason-Dixon line, you aren't a racist. And if you're below the Mason-Dixon line, you are a racist. And this is the only reason why we fought the Civil War. This is some of the most retarded shit I've ever been asked to swallow. And it's part of why I keep bringing up his name, Alex, because it makes me mad that this shit's been suppressed for so long. Why are we suppressing it now? This is our generation. Alex is my age. The world belongs to us. No one is here penalizing me. No one is putting me in jail for telling you a story that makes you fucking uncomfortable about what happened in history. It's not even a bad story. It's actually good news. This is fucking gospel I'm delivering, but we can't see it that way. We can't understand it that way because it breaks the narrative that there was a bicameral house already here, that George Washington said, hey, I need the 7 leaders of the Powhatan to come to a banquet because I want to apologize for how rude I was to you. And then he cuts their fucking head off. That's our history. And I don't want you to feel shame for anything. I think the shame is coming online. I think you feeling shame for anything is simply shame coming online. Your feelings are growing. You're gaining the ability to perceive things that you've never been able to perceive before. And with that comes a sense of fragility, because you need the fragility of the diaphragm, the fragile diaphragm, which means you may not know your fucking history. And if you're allowed to be fragile, you're allowed to be wrong. If you're allowed to be wrong, you're allowed to break in public. And if you're allowed to break in public, you get to fucking let the truth out. You get to be authentic for the first time in your life and show people. I don't know what to tell you, man. I grew up in the South. I just learned a lot of history. I grew up in Chickamauga battlefield, some of the worst, bloodiest. That river literally means the bloody river. It's hard to grow up and not smell the truth. It's hard to grow up in that place and not just ingest the history. I'd be doing the same thing if I was in Mexico City right now. Are you kidding? Can you imagine how insane I'd be if I lived there? I'd be tapping into that local salt, licking that fucking statues when no one's looking. Be like, I'm going to lick Coatlicque's armpits when no one's looking. And just like an Egyptians would scrape off a little bit of the dust from the Isis's shin, the giant statue at Karnak, I'd be licking Coatlicue, because I'd be touching that same salt, that same part of the history. And meanwhile, you've got all the Aztec historians saying, well, no, there really wasn't any human sacrifice. That didn't happen. And then like 7 years later, 80,000 fucking skulls are uncovered. I'm not even exaggerating. Like so many skulls. And all of a sudden, the academia is forced to move. The same academia that tells you this place was started on racism, that this entire thing is because the South are bad guys, and you better not listen to Leonard Skinner, because Neil Young is the one that knows. And guys, Neil Young's the one that's like, you can't play my fucking music unless you give me money. And all you fucks in Alabama are racist, and Alabama. And that's the bitter guy that's in denial because he can't be fragile, because he can't look and say, well, we fucking lost. See, the South gets to lose. They get to know that they were right and they lost. I don't think people understand how fucking valuable that is. You want to know why people appreciate authentic Southern cooking? It's because people in the South are fucking authentic, because vitriol led them that way. They took them to the promised land. And Nathan fucking Bedford Forrest led the way. I got a lot of language here, sorry about that. But Nathan Bedford Forrest led the way. It was winter solstice in 2017. And at the height of the call to tear down statues, one of our greatest Turtle Island defenders fell. This guy was defending Turtle Island in my mind. This guy was the Iroquois Confederacy. The last statue of the Iroquois Confederacy was taken down by a corporation. And that Memphis is so proud of themselves because they were able to simply sell the park that had the statue, that they felt, if we get rid of the statue, we'll feel so much better. We'll be so much less racist if we get rid of the statue. But they couldn't, because the heritage was alive and the blood was living. And people were like, you're going to fucking do what? And when they tried to tell them the story of Nathan Bedford Forrest, they were shot down just like I was. And then you have the really disgusting irony here of this photo, is that you've got a guy wearing an Aztec shirt celebrating the fall of the Eagle Warrior. The Eagle Warrior is right there. And this guy is offended because the Eagle Warrior is being venerated. And this is the fragile man. And this is a medicine we need. We need to lean into this. We need to lean in to this concept. The true history is always going to be more guilty than you think. It's always going to involve a lot more dirty hands. And we don't get to make the history that we record. We get to fight against it, push back maybe by 1 to 3%. And the more popular you are as a social icon, the more responsibility you have to push back. But the people that are on the top are never going to push back, because that's not how you stay. That's not how you dope. That's not how you win this thing. And quite frankly, it's how the South lost too. The South wasn't willing to incorporate the idea of indentured servitude via military to win a war. And by the time they started their own currency, it was far too late. They could have made it. But in order for the South to win, they would have had to have abandoned the Iroquois Confederacy. They would have had to have said, this doesn't work. I don't know if you guys have even looked at the history of the rebel flag. I'm talking about the crossed rebel flag with the stars on it. That's an Iroquois symbol. This blew my mind when I found that. It's like, what? What? And when you start to understand why there were no casualties at Fort Sumter, the very battle that kicked it off, you understand, in my mind, you see how clever the PSYOP was, how well put together it was. I've told you how the New York Times was the very first organization to own an invention called the Gatling gun, an automated machine gun that fired off a tripod. And the first time this thing was used was on the the steps of the New York Times office itself. And that you saw at the start of an AP Reuters Newswire propaganda machine that was going to win the country with lies. And they had an underground railroad built from what is present-day Atlanta, present-day Birmingham. An underground railroad of information passed from the Spanish-American War up into New York. And that through passing that information, they were able to realize that we can take over this whole place, and all it takes is propaganda. That's all we need. And this really is ultimately what wins every war, and this is why the frontal lobe is such a crucial thing. It's so difficult to stay virgin because you're going to die. The deceit's going to come kill you. And I'm probably one of the few that says this, and I get why you would maybe call this fragile. I think the South is supposed to do that. I think it's supposed to die. I think it's supposed to die the same way the Indians did. That the purpose of this loss is to prove to you that sanctity wins. And we're not ready to see that yet, because we're still blocking the history of what happens. But one day you will notice that sanctity literally would be the only way that this wins. That there will come a time when the Wetiko comes, and that it will not be fought with Wetiko, it will be fought with authenticity. And that fighting with authenticity will lead to a loss, because they're not willing to embrace in Wetiko, and that this is how a vibration begins. It is placing sanctity before survival. And this is something an indentured servant doesn't have the privilege or the luxury to understand. And all of us, if you're playing by the rules, you're an indentured servant right now. That we've embraced this concept that 45% of your resources is necessary to go to a war machine because of how racist and evil people are, not the government. We got a long way to go. And our feelings are coming online. I'm proud of it. And if you want to know more about this long journey, I strongly encourage you to read my latest piece, Ego and the War on the Imagination. It showcases why this kind of move through these emotions is so crucial for us to gain understanding. We've been moving through this for a long, long time. So this is not a new game. In fact, I've traced this. If you read this article, I trace it all the way back to Greece. If you want to hear more about the South, if you want to hear about the federal clan bake, which I think is one of the most funniest trials ever, gonna need to get those numbers up. Gotta get those numbers up, boy. Gonna have to get them numbers up, all right? So let's get some thumbs clicking and some subscribers going on. Join Patreon and participate in the bake sale. Whatever it takes, and I'll bring you the show whenever you're ready. Thanks for watching today. Love you much. Take care. Happy Monday.